encourage you to check that out. Links for that can be found at heartland.org. Just quickly, some projects that the Heartland Institute's working on lately. The Common Core. I don't know if many of you are familiar with what the Common Core is. Basically a federal takeover of a disaster. Yes, a disastrous federal takeover of education standards in this country. One of the things that Joy Pullman, our managing editor for School Reform News, who covers education policy for us, one thing she discovered to her dismay was how uneducated so many people in the
Thank you, Jim, for that elaborate introduction, and thank you, Heartland. I must say I'm a little nervous because Parth, who is my mentor and founder president of Center for Civil Society, was originally planned to be here today to present CCS's work for the past 15 years. He's unable to join us today due to a medical condition, but sends his regards to everyone present here today. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have been working with Center for Civil Society for the past 6 years, and therefore I'm extremely proud to be presenting our work in advancing prosperity, freedom in India. Has anybody here heard of CCS before? Center for Civil Society. Okay, I would like to share a very short story of how CCS started. 15 years ago, Parth, who was a professor at the Michigan University in the US, decided to start a libertarian think tank in India. He recollects his early experience of living in India then. Picture this, spending more than half a day, coming from the US, coming from a very luxurious life here as a professor, coming to India. He recollects spending more than half a day paying his first telephone bill in New Delhi. The stress of renting an apartment where rent control and tenancy laws made it nearly impossible to lease any space without close personal contacts. Seeing his father actually wait for over months to get the first Bajaj scooter, and where even cooking gas was and is still a government monopoly among many other things. Well, widespread abuse of political power, close ties between politicians and criminals, flagrant violation of even basic human rights, censorship of books, plays, films, and work of art vividly demonstrate the government's control not just over our economic, but also social and cultural life in India. Well, after a political independence in the 1940s from an alien state, we feel India still awaits her civil independence. And it was to signify the necessity of economic, social, cultural freedom from the omnipresent Indian state that the Center for Civil Society was inaugurated on 15th of August, 1997, on the 50th anniversary of India's political independence. But setting up CCS was not an easy task. He had assumed that by sheer statistical odds, there must be a few classical liberals in a country of 1.2 billion people. But he realized early on that it was very difficult to find such people. So initially, even before the formal setup of the organization, Parth got together with a few friends, started organizing a 1-hour, 2-hour lecture series, starting to get young people, going to different colleges, talking to different people, and basically starting to train professionals, young public policy aspirants to engage with us. So I'm going to take you quickly through the past 15 years of CCS's journey and what our hope for is for the next 15 years, and then please feel free to ask questions in between. I'm happy to do that. Center for Civil Society, this is our slogan, from independence to freedom. That is what we are trying to achieve in India. Well, this is how we start even our student programs at the center. Why is India poor? Perhaps the first libertarian think tank in India to ask what is the root cause of India's poverty. Is it population? Is it illiteracy? Is it cultural setting? Well, this is where we start from. Why is India poor? And we feel it is due to restricted area, no entry unless authorized. I'm going to take you through another slide. So what is the problem? Too much state and too little freedom. This is where we start this is what we started our work with. And what's the solution? We think battle of ideas, well, the whole idea of CCS trying to engage people trying to engage people with public policy, and that's our motto: social change through public policy. How do you engage people to engage on a policy level? How do you the one thing that Parth always tells everybody at the beginning of any program is that he says, I'm going to demonstrate today that all problem in India has a root cause in a certain public policy, and that's where the CCS came up with the slogan social change through public policy. So whatever we do at the center is policy oriented, whether it is trainings in terms of philosophy. It's always about a liberal approach to public policy, not just libertarian philosophy in general. Our short-term goal is to bring about policy change, work with current policymakers, look at current policies, and advocate for policy reforms, look at international experiences, look at local case studies, look at empirical data, and advocate with central, state, and local level governments to bring about policy change. But our long-term goal is to change mindsets. We have, coupled with a very adamant state, the Indian masses have, the socio-cultural setting of the masses in India is so huge and so devoted to the government being its savior, that what we need to do long-term is to change mindsets. How do we get people to come from that mode of functioning to actually have that belief in themselves, to be able to think, choose as rational human beings? So CCS is facilitating the movement from a centralized economy to a free enterprise economy. That was something that Milton Friedman said when early on in the year. So 15 years, we've got a three-pronged approach. We work on research, well, understanding the root cause, not symptoms, of the abundant problems plaguing the Indian society today. Second is advocacy, convincing today's decision makers on the right policies. And third is outreach, inculcating an appreciation for liberal values in future decision makers. In the past 15 years, we have had 6 areas of work. Today, amongst the 6 areas, we work on three very focused areas. First and foremost, education for all. The biggest work of CCS's, the biggest chunk of CCS's work is in the education space. In 2001, Parth met Milton Friedman in the early 1990s and came back and actually did the first national conference on education and threw the idea of school vouchers in 2001. It created a lot of ruckus, the whole idea of presenting school choice as a bouquet of ideas and not just talking about vouchers and an instrument, talking about for-profit education, perhaps for the first time in India, talking about edupreneurs, the private sector players. There was a lot of ruckus created. That's what Parth tells us, to an extent that he recalls his first conference, that was the first conference where he had to have lunch alone. It was that embarrassing or that difficult. But school choice was in 2007. We launched an extensive national campaign, and that campaign had a 5-pronged approach again. First and foremost was to educate parents about what the school choice idea was all about and how a simple tool like a voucher could change the future of generations to come. In order to do that, there was an extensive 8-state mass campaign. We used very traditional communication tools like street theater, song and dance sequences like you would do in India, mobile van rallies to propagate the idea of what school choice was amongst poor parents especially. What that led to was we had over a lakh, which is about 100,000 people, 100,000 people, parents actually, support the movement, who then went on to be champions of the movement in gathering about 27 lakh signature petitions demanding school choice. Now what this did was add weightage to the work, to our work as a think tank, because now we represented the voice of parents and children across India. What we realized was equally important was to engage stakeholders. How do you keep stakeholders engaged in current policy, education policy, and how do you make education providers better responsive to parents, students, and teachers? So through a lot of dialogue series, through workshops, publications, we kind of brought people from different sectors together to talk about larger policy, education policy in the country. Now what that did was create a huge bank of very powerful school choice ambassadors and supporters in India, who amplified our voice through their forums and through the media. The third thing that we did was policy and proof of concept. CCS launched India's first voucher pilot project. We got on the ground and got our hands dirty to showcase the applicability of the idea to the government. We awarded about 804 children a school voucher worth up to about 4,000 rupees per month per child to go to a school of their choice for 5 years. Now what the findings of that, and I have a copy of the assessment report here if you'd like a copy of it. What the findings showed was that not only, the findings were crucial feeders in our advocacy work. It not only showed that parents actually exercise choice by taking their kid from a government school and enrolling them in a private school, but it also showed that voucher kids had better performance, better attendance, better discipline, which inspired parents to actually, I don't know whether this is common in India, but in a very rural setting in India, the aspirants of parents, especially those of girl children, are that you'll have your daughter or a son educated to class 5 or class 8. What the findings of the voucher project showcased was how aspiration of parents actually were increasing year after year. They now wanted their child to go from not just class 5 up to class 8, class 10, and then perhaps even beyond college, thereby securing a better and a brighter future. So that was some of the pilot project. And then advocacy. Policy advocacy is basically engaging with central, state, local level governments and bringing to the forefront our research, market-based solutions to the forefront of policy making. So school choice campaign is our biggest focus area of work. Now let me bring you back to the current setting of what the education scenario is in India. In 2009, India passed the historic legislation called the Right to Education Act. Now what this act mandates is that children between the ages of 6 to 14 be provided compulsory and free education. But there are two clauses within this act that has been the focus area of CCS work in the past 3 years. Number one, what the law mandates is that 25% reservation in all private schools should be made for children from economically weaker sections of society. So what this is, or what this could perhaps be, is a system in which the government is actually paying fees for children to go to a private school of their choice. And we believe that if only the implementation of this clause be through a voucher model, that it could perhaps be the world's largest voucher program in the world. Now India has, now picture this, India has about 10 million students going to class in grade 1. Out of that, 25% is 2.5 million children who are going to be reimbursed, 2.5 million children whose fees are going to be paid by the government to go to a private school of their choice in their neighborhood, right? In 12 years, that is going to come to, that figure is going to come up to about 30 million children going to a school of their choice through a government-funded program. And therefore, right now, the focus of the center is to advocate with state governments to implement this section through a voucher model, and that's the hope. That's the hope. But a closer look at the act, and you will see that there are a lot of problems for us as well. Now, in India, you have two different types of private schools. One is the elite private schools, and the other one is the low-fee budget private schools. There isn't an exact figure of how many, there hasn't been any study done to see how many of these budget private schools exist. Now these are schools which charge a fee of 50 rupees to 500 rupees per child per month, functioning from very small buildings, even one room out of one room. But it is estimated that there are about 3 to 7 lakh such schools in India which provide education to over 20 million children in the country. Now, what the Act says is that this was passed in 2009, and most of these schools, most of the budget private schools are unrecognized because they do not meet certain norms of the government. In India, there are about 36 different licenses that you actually need to start a school. And there's a list of elaborate norms. What the law has done is that in the next 3 years, if these schools do not get recognition or comply with the norms, they're going to be shut down. Now, these norms are ridiculous. It's like a school needs to have a playground of a size of a football field. It needs to have a computer lab with X number of computers. Each school needs to have a library of X number of books. It needs to be earthquake, proof. It needs now. Just imagine in a place like Delhi where rentals. Where the rent is huge. It is even for a middle class Indian would be really difficult. Now these schools, which are probably like 4 schools could fit in this room. Imagine such standards and such norms such laws being existent for these schools, which is really. And even if these schools shut down, where would the 20 million children actually go to? Because the state clearly does not have provision or enough schools to provide education to these children. So one is the 25%, where CCS is lobbying for a voucher mode of implementation, and the second is to fight for the cause of the budget private schools in the country. We've created something called the National Independent Schools Alliance, which is basically a network of schools association from all over India. What we want to do is we want this to be a national platform where schools come together, have a stronger voice for advocacy, but at the same time also is a platform for best practices sharing and improvement in standards of schools within themselves. Today, after 1 year of the establishment of this association, we have about 10,000 schools being represented from about 12 different countries, and the membership is on the rise. So that is where the education campaign is at the moment. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back and forth on the presentation because I'm just going with the flow of a certain vertical. Well, school choice is a national level campaign. The second campaign focus area of work is livelihoods, and we call it Jivika campaign. Well, in India, in the 1990s, when India liberalized, only a few benefited from that. The liberalization was only for the industries, and who got left behind are the unorganized sector entrepreneurs, which comprise over 90% of the economy. Street vendors, cycle rickshaw pullers, auto rickshaw pullers, So what the campaign is working towards is to revise, relook, review, and remove some of the regulatory barriers. Unorganized sector entrepreneurs in India still function under the license permit quota Raj. There are redundant laws, like, for example, the law mandates that a cycle rickshaw puller should be the owner and the driver of the rickshaw. You cannot own more than 1 rickshaw per person. Now imagine this, just telling normal people like us, you can have only 1 car per person in a house. So there are really archaic laws that needs to be revised, relooked, removed, and this is the campaign that is working towards bringing about that change. We worked a little bit on good governance. This was basically doing research papers, reaching out to the media, doing policy analysis, and just getting our ideas, our take on different topics to the world. So what has been, so school choice, the education campaign, the livelihood campaign are the 2 broad areas of work for CCS right now. There is a third component, which is, I must say, is the backbone of CCS. The way CCS started with very small talk programs, workshops, seminars for young people, we've now brought all of this under the umbrella of what we call the CCS Academy. Now what the Academy does is runs all the educational and outreach programs of the center. primary target audience, still young leaders in the age group of 18 to 25. But then we've also diversified into other areas. We work with journalists, we work with development leaders, and recently from last year started to engage with business executives. The whole idea is, how do you spread your principles, your ideas, and make people engage with public policy? So therefore, in a year, we conduct about 25 to 30 different programs or events. This could be in the form of a seminar, a workshop, a conference, a talk, or even internship programs for young people. Well, in the past 50 years, what's been the biggest wins for our organization? I think ideas win. CCS perhaps was the first organization or think tank to be throwing such terms or phrases, limited government, property rights, per child funding, budget performing schools, inclusive economic freedom, choice, competition, community, trickle up growth, city Swaraj, duty to publish. Well, these were all ideas win for us, because 15 years ago, when we actually conducted seminars and conferences for young people or even for different stakeholders, these terms were relatively unknown or unaccepted. 15 years down the lane, there's a lot more acceptance and a lot more debate, discussion, very robust discussion on some of the ideas that CCS has been able to provide its audience. Policy wins. Now, well, these are some of the policy wins that CCS has been able to achieve in the past 15 years. One is to get Delhi to repeal the essentiality certificate for schools. There was a particular certificate, essentiality certificate, that schools needed to, so we got that repealed. Well, ASR, or Admission for School Admission Reform, Action for School Admission Reforms, was a very short project or a campaign that we launched, and we got that in Delhi. Prior to this campaign, they had, schools had admissions scattered throughout the year, and this led to a lot of harassment for parents. But we got a common schedule admission got in. The RTI incorporates duty to publish. So RTI is the Right to Information Act. I think there's a similar act here. I'm not sure what the equivalent of that is. Yes, freedom of. So the duty to publish, information clause was brought on due to CCS's efforts. Well, what the school voucher idea also did was it led 3 progressive states to announce voucher schemes, and you will get to know more about them in some of the publications that I've brought for you today. Bamboo acknowledged as a grass knot tree. Now, this is really funny. In India, in the Indian Forest Act, bamboo has been listed under a tree, and it is bamboo is, under a tree for the past 60, 70 years of the act being in place. Bamboo was considered a tree. Now, what this did was that, because it comes under the Forest Act, the tribals who have access to bamboo in different regions of the country were not able to cultivate, use it, and generate income for themselves. But we launched a campaign called Bamboo is Not a Tree, and then and started collecting signature petitions to get this reformed. And today, very pleased to learn that the ministry has accepted the fact that bamboo is not a tree, but we are still awaiting the change in the act. Now, that I don't know how long it is going to take. The acceptance has already happened, but between the acceptance and now, there has been like a minister or two who've been shifted from different departments, so we're like constantly following up on this front as well. Rajasthan is another state in India. Now, they've passed the street vendors bill. We're looking at different vending zones. We've been promoting the idea of vending zones and model markets in the 2 cities that we're working on. And Rajasthan has been one of the first states to pass the street vendors bill with some of the recommendations that CCS has provided. More again in some of the publications that I've bought for you. The Municipal Corporation of Delhi takes note of interns paper. Now, this is a big achievement for an organization, for a public policy think tank. Often you think that policy wins are due to the work of great economists and policy analysts and senior members of staff. But there was this one paper, one paper by an intern called Shahana Sheikh in 2010. I clearly remember her experience. During an internship period, we run a summer internship program that is a 2-month-long full-time program for about 30 students in a year who come, choose one topic, and then go about in the field researching reality. The whole idea of the internship is to research reality, to look at what are the loopholes in a particular field, and then come up with a recommendation. Now, this girl had done a very simple, very simple paper on public toilet facilities for women in Delhi. That was the topic of her research paper. Once the internship was over, the paper was published. Somehow it landed up on the table of the Chief Minister and the Delhi High Court, which also led us to have more faith in, like, you know, sending things out to different departments as we do. And she was in national media for over a week, front page, national media. The Chief Minister and the Delhi High Court actually, the Chief Minister actually recommended that the MCD, the department, go over a paper and take note of all the recommendations that this young girl had provided. So it's a big win in terms of the kind of change that young people are able to bring about, and a big success for CCS. And yes, the 12th plan by the Planning Commission highlights some you know, alternative delivery mechanisms. Okay. But I must say, I've worked with CCS for the past 6 years. I've represented CCS in various international, national forums. And for me, it is such a pleasure that everywhere I go, any city I've been to, I've met CCS alum, I've met CCS graduates. There's always been a get-together, a night of get-together. And so I would say for us, I mean, at least for me, if not for, I'm so sorry. I'm so excited as soon as it's about people. So for me personally, I would say our biggest win has been people's win, you know. CCS has given birth to over 9 intellectual entrepreneurs in the past 15 years. I'll be able to share more details about them later. People who've gone on to, you know, start their own organizations, think tanks, research institutes, NGOs, both thinkers and activists. So that's a huge win for us. Over the past 15 years, we've had 7,000 alumni of our seminars and internship programs. 75 of them are in, you know, it's also interesting to see the change in the career shift. Students who come to our program come from diverse sectors, medicine, engineering, science, you know, economics, law. But 75 of them have actually had like career shifts. They've gone on to study public policy or economics after an experience at a CCS seminar. 20 graduates have come back to work with us at CCS. Today, the head of development, in the past 6 years, I've had the pleasure to work with many of them. I think what this also does is brings about or creates a culture where people are philosophically so strong at the center while having the skill set, you know, for the different functions within the center. Today, we've made it a practice at the center. Any new recruit. All new recruits have to undergo a seminar that we organize for different target audiences. So there is a 4-day, that is the 4-day orientation into the ideas and principles that CCS values. Okay, 27 lakh parents of 10,000 street vendors mobilized. These are some of the, you know, some of the successes from the campaigns also. In the past 15 years, you know, the papers like the one that I mentioned of Shahana, the young intern, we've had over 360 research papers. I'm so happy to share that, you know, I've had interns, past interns of CCS presenting these papers at international forums, like the one that Atlas Foundation does in New York during the Asia Liberty Forum, or you know, are presenting something or the other in various symposiums and conferences. Yes, I think I mean, I'll show you our brochure has a list of, we've got 3 boards in the organization, a board of scholars, a board of advisors, and a board of trustees. Now, people's win for us is also that we've been able to bring people from the other spectrum to be supporters of our ideas. There's a gentleman called Madhav Chavan who heads Pratham Institute in India. He came from a very, very different perspective to actually championing the cause of school choice in India. We've got this really strong board across various cross sections of society who've really been instrumental in amplifying our voice and bringing new network members, bringing new members to our network. Acknowledgements from MPs, MLAs, state governments, academics, journalists. Now, I would say I would consider this least of the people's win, because I never know when their stand changes. Yes, a lot of MPs have supported us. A lot of MPs have championed some of our campaigns, some of our signature petitions. But then the future is very uncertain for us, although it is a big win for us that we are in touch with that network of people who are supportive or sympathetic to our cause. Well, just media wins, 15 years of media wins, just listed it down. What we've done as a PR initiative is also do a lot of different things to attract the media. As you can see, the picture here of during the 2009 election, we did a school choice election campaign, advocacy campaign, where we didn't spend a dime. All that we did was create school choice mascots. We kind of had people dress up as a small kid, a small boy and a girl dressed up in school uniforms with 2 big placards. One that of a hand saying, if I have the right to vote, why can't I choose my school? If I can choose my, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little confused. If I have the right to vote, why can't I choose my school? So a big hand and a big pencil. And all that we did these were volunteers. These were young volunteers whom we sent out during the election rallies, at public gatherings, meetings, outside the compound of politicians, basically to do nothing, just sit there with their mascots, because those were like hubs for the media, and that's how a lot of the media attention came to the center. The other thing was also doing a lot of street theater work in very rural areas of India. Popular culture, YouTube videos, things like these have been very, very instrumental to the success in media wins. But what's also contributed is to bring people's story from the field. Talk about Rahul, who attended a government school in X city, or talk about a parent. It's always been, how do you bring emotion? How do you bring people's story that that the masses can feel, understand? Because it's very complex for people to take in economic theories, complex economic theories in terms of just data and fact sheet. So the whole idea has been, how do you communicate stories? How do you get that emotional connect with the audience? So that's pretty much media wins for us. Just a quick glance over the past 5 years. Well, that's Patsha, and that was the founding of CCS. Our first, I think that's the trust deed. This was the first Liberty and Society seminar that was organized in 1998. This lady here, Bhuvna, now heads she's the Director of Development and Communication at the center. So, and then there are a lot of others who've actually gone on to start their own organizations, are professors, or are doing their PhDs in policy. Again, in 2001, the first conference on alternative education and school vouchers in South Asia. These are just milestones I'm quickly going to take you through. The early years, Parth recalls his early years. He started the organization within his own house. He tells us that the first 3 years were so exciting because I just walked out of my room into the office. I was always in my shorts. People were eating, sleeping in the apartment, young people who were so passionate about these ideas. So From that to now, we have a double-storied building. We have a 30 members in our staff. So it's been quite an incredible journey. The first Jivika Asia Livelihood Documentary Festival. I spoke a little bit about the livelihood campaign that focuses on unorganized sector entrepreneurs. What we do every year, and I think this is our 10th year, is that we host an annual documentary festival. The whole idea of a livelihood documentary festival is to bring to the forefront what are the different challenges in the livelihood sector for different people, and how do you use the medium of documentaries to showcase to the world, to your audience, a captive audience, about 300, 500 people, and look at what are the big policy problems there. And that's been a regular feature. Every year we bring, and it is a competition as well, so there is the first top 3 selected. This is another way of, again, engaging outreach with different target audiences. In 2004, we started policy meets with members of parliament. Basically, in a year, we do about 3 or 4 different breakfast meetings with MPs, bringing in about 12 different MPs on a particular theme every event, and having a more robust dialogue and discussion with them. In 2006, Parth was inducted in the steering committee of the Central Information Commission. The Delhi Education Minister, again Arvinder Singh Lovely, removes cap on licenses to open schools, and then published the Duty to Public Compliance Index of the Right to Education Act. In 2007 was the launch of the School Choice Campaign and India's first voucher project, the Delhi Voucher Project. In 2008, CCS was ranked #1 in the top 25 think tanks in Asia. We also won the PIL on school admission in Delhi. I spoke about this a little bit earlier. We partnered with Government of Rajasthan for first state voucher initiative, that was Gyanodaya and Shiksha Ka Apna Vidyalay, more in some of the publications that I have for you. And this is the lady, Shahana Sheikh, researching reality interns paper on public toilets in Delhi. High Court orders MCD to take note of it and follow her model of toilets. Just a few, we launched second voucher pilot in 2009. The common admission schedule got in Delhi. In 2009, CCS has primarily had everything conducted in English, and there was hardly any way of taking libertarian ideas to Hindi bhasis, or people who speak in Hindi, and that's a huge, not just in India but all over the world. So in partnership with Atlas, we started India's first liberal portal called Azadi.me, freedom and me, how does that relate? So the whole idea of the portal is to have classical liberal literature plus contemporary news, views, comments from experts from all over the world. This is also part of Atlas Global Initiative project. In 2010, we launched the Right to Education portal. Now, Right to Education portal is a one-stop shop for all information regarding the Act. What's happening with different states, what are schools doing, how is the 25% being implemented, what are the different modules that people are suggesting, a one-stop shop. 2011 was where we formalized all our programs into what we today call CCS Academy, and then also launched the National Independent Schools Alliance. In 2012, it was the Street Vendors Bill in Rajasthan, policy meet with MPs on alternative delivery mechanism. Sorry. And this year, CCS was ranked among the top 51 think tanks in the world, according to a report by the University of Pennsylvania. We were the only think tank in Asia on the top 100, and in India, CCS is the #1, was listed as the #1 think tank in India. So that's a huge boost for what we do back in India. Well, the next 15 years, what do we want to do? Sorry. Reinvigorate civil society and right-sized political society. That has been a part of a mission statement. And how do we go about doing that? One is to be at the forefront of a debate on the role of government, policy reforms to remove from welfare state to welfare society. These are our 4 core focus areas for the next 15 years: education of choice, equal distribution of economic freedom, social services through cash transfers and markets, and property rights, and what we call city Swaraj. So this would be on the policy front. And secondly, we started with a 2-pronged approach. One was through a short-term policy win and a long-term change in mindset. And then we go back and revisit that again when we're talking about the next 15 years. So that was the policy win for us. But changing mindset, build an army of liberal soldiers for the second freedom movement, what we call a second freedom movement in India, who champion the idea, need, and power of individual freedom. So we want to now extend all our discourses, all our programs in 5 different languages. India has more than 22, I think, national recognized languages. But in the next 5 years, we really want to build capacity in terms of our resource people, in terms of our literature, to have liberal discourse in 5 different languages. We want to open up a permanent public policy training center. From organizing these 4-day, 5-day programs and conferences, we want to move into creating a public policy module, perhaps a month long, a 3 months long program that we want to, that we want to advocate with different universities to be plugged in as a capsule model for different programs that they are running. But then also hopefully have a training center of our own. And the idea is in the next 15 years we have programs in every state. In a year we go to about 6-7 states, taking our programs to different target audiences. But the hope is that now all our programs are pretty much funded. But now what's happened is that because of the credibility of some of the training programs that we do, a lot of colleges, a lot of universities are now coming together to host partnership programs with us. Now what that has done is like decrease our cost tremendously. They would provide us with venue, everything, and we bring in the curriculum and the speakers. So that allows us, or that gives us enough, the remaining funds that we have. We want to really go into rural India now. We've already been to tier 1, tier 2 cities. It is now time to go into rural India in places which have actually given birth to some of the greatest leaders of the country. I would, there are abundant problems in India, India today, and then we have like a mammoth task of securing the future of our children, of our future generation. But I think we are still very hopeful as a think tank. Hopeful, why? Because a lot of progressive states supporting some of the work that you champion is very hopeful. Hopeful also because more and more thought leaders, opinion makers are joining the movement. Hopeful also because there are new entrepreneurs. There is a tremendous market of entrepreneurs who offer innovation, scale, and choice. And hopeful also because the youth today are more informed than they ever were, are used to the lifestyle that they have right now, and will refuse to go back to ancient times when things took so much of time. But they're also very enthusiastic to impact change in whatever scope of their work revolves around. I must say that I grew up in a very socialist environment myself, but my view of the world changed when I actually first came to CCS 6 years ago. For the first 1 or 2 months, I came to head communications. And I'm sure you know how difficult that is to be able to feel the organization and bring about the essence of the organization. But for the first month, I was so troubled because I was being bombarded with ideas I had no idea about. And I was like, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing in this organization. But then that slowly changed. It was very simple things, one talk by one of our resource people who spoke about population causes prosperity. Simple article, a quick read, and a discussion with him that lasted hours and hours, that made me rethink, relook at my own values. But I must say that my entrance into the libertarian movement actually happened when I got to meet a parent of a voucher kid in Delhi. Peak of summer, we were launching the second voucher pilot in Delhi, and I was astonished to see the way parents actually made decisions. I was so ignorant and sometimes even, I think, a little too arrogant to think that the poor could not make an informed choice. But looking at these parents, illiterate parents, who were actually going through a booklet that we had prepared for them for this project, and actually seeing that process of decision making and what they look for, how they go about asking questions, who they talk to. I mean, that was the moment when I realized this works and this is it. And therefore CCS has been very special for me, for my personal journey as well, but also that it has clearly put a human face to liberalism, in India at least. And has clearly demonstrated that classical liberal approach does more for the poor than any other philosophy. We just need to find the right issues to drive this message effectively. Thank you, and I will take your questions now. Yes, please.
You talked about organizing the street vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done any work with the people that provide local transportation?
In terms of buses and
Buses and cabs or what?
pretty much working with auto rickshaw pullers, cycle rickshaw pullers and auto rickshaw drivers at the moment, not with but was there anything in specific that you wanted to?
I know that the experience in South Africa was
Mm-hmm.
that minorities, blacks, and some Indians, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
provided local transportation
Mm-hmm.
because they were excluded from other forms of commerce. And this became a natural fit. And when independence came, the industry, transportation industry boomed.
Oh, okay.
Under the
Where was this? It would be good to
South Africa.
South Africa. Yes, sir.
Are the teachers' unions powerful, and are they giving you trouble?
They are extremely, extremely powerful in India. Extremely united and extremely powerful. I think teacher unions are probably the biggest threat and challenge to the campaign. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You talked about your media activities,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess that's a universal problem
Mm-hmm.
throughout the planet. One of the things, I'm from Wisconsin, and one of the things we've, of course, had some big changes up there and taken on the unions and pretty much put them back.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that has happened is we have this grassroots media that's sprung up and has really
Mm-hmm.
started to take place of, other media sources, because frankly, most people don't even use them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you guys are doing, or that's happening in India?
What do you mean by grassroots media?
Well, like for example, I have this paper that I published.
Ah,
and
okay.
there's like four
Local,
of them. There's 4 of them around, and then there's different blog sites and
Mhm.
different. And we're actually looking at getting into. We're making videos, like you said. You get on
Yes.
YouTube, but there's a video that we made about called Mine Shaft. We went up there and put a video and dispersed it around the state to these different groups of people that meet, and that really had an impact on that whole policy thing that legislation got
Mhm.
passed like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And really the next step is to really get into television media
Yes.
somehow and
Yes.
and that kind of stuff. Is that something that you guys are doing? Or
Yes, I
looking at?
think online media is huge in India right now, so that is a big part of how we reach out to the masses. But India also has a huge. It's not just the national dailies and magazines that have huge numbers. It's also the local level magazines and newspapers that we are trying to now reach out to. Because yes, you need the national level magazine to impact policy making, but you also need these regional, local level newspapers to actually reach out to the masses.
Yeah, you
So
need
it's
right. You need
yeah.
to reach the people in the neighborhood.
yes. So it's both ways. You use the national media to reach to policy making and impact there, but then you also work with regional. That's why the whole shift from just focus from not only targeting the English media but also going into different local languages. Is so important, and also because they have more space than national media, and they kind of will engage with you, will take out the time to learn, and so it's been a combination of both. I think initially when we started, it was purely targeting the big guys in the field, but then as and when we learned that it's double-pronged approach of taking it to the masses as well, we went on to local level.
Have you been systematically excluded from the mainstream media, like which happens here?
Yeah, there are a couple of I think that will be true for any libertarian think tank anywhere in the world. There are a couple of sympathetic, but there are also many who are not sympathetic. But the one thing that we've realized is, how do you get the non-sympathetic people to pay attention to what you are doing, and it has always been through people's stories, bring out case studies. Even if it doesn't matter, if you're in the media for the wrong reason, you're in the media for the right reason, you're at least there in the media and your name is making a bang. So we've tried to play both cards, and it has worked well for us. So yeah.
I'm wondering if in India, are there either political or high-profile citizens who are kind of on your side and promoting some of these issues? And has it been hard to find those types of people? I know, like, especially politicians are trying to groom your own Scott Walker or someone like that, because I know we see that a lot here. I mean, even just a presidential candidate can take an issue from nothing and put it onto kind of the national scene, and I think I wasn't sure if you guys have any of those types of people carrying the water.
There are. I would say for specific projects, we've actually had some politicians really support us. Like the internship program that I just spoke about, the Chief Minister of Delhi was actually very, very happy about this campaign, and she stood by us. In the education campaign work that we were doing, the former Minister of Education in Delhi was a huge champion of our school choice movement. But what we have is a very, very strong board of trustees. Some of the biggest opinion makers and intellectuals of the country are in our boards, in various boards. One of them is Gurcharan Das. I don't know how many of he's a public intellectual and author, former head of Procter & Gamble, CEO of Procter & Gamble in India. Very powerful names. So Gurcharan comes from literary corporate sector. We have somebody called Ajay Shah, who's professor at the National Institute for Public Finance and Policy. So there are a lot of people in the board who actually make the work of CCS a lot more relevant, a lot more important in the public sphere. For school choice particularly, we've had like a very good board of school choice ambassadors, bringing Professor James Tooley from the UK, who's to India, Pauline Dixon, who works with him. Then there are other people like Jayatirtha Rao, who's a big-time corporate guy in India, have all come together for different reasons, but definitely a lot of support there. Yeah.
I'm just curious, you said you come from a socialist background, so what drew you to CCS even to begin with?
I think everyone, if you ask that question to, I mean, not the coming to CCS part, but if you ask anybody in India, I think everybody has had a socialist upbringing of some sorts, and nobody is born libertarian in India, I must say. I worked in, after my master's, I went to Nepal to work as a journalist for about 6 years. That was when I was working with two magazines called The Boss, which was a business magazine, and Vow, the women's magazine. Parth, who heads Center for Civil Society, founder president, was on the advisory board of the business magazine that I was working with. Now this business magazine was perhaps one of the first free market business magazines in the country. So I got introduced to the idea, not in the way and in the depth that CCS introduced me to, but I was aware of what the ideas were and all that stuff. But in 2008, Nepal was undergoing a huge turmoil, and myself being Indian, I thought probably I should relocate to Delhi and start looking for something there. It actually happened by chance that I happened to stumble on an advertisement. I didn't even know Parth was heading the organization. I just liked the idea of school choice, applied for a communication position, which was a very technical, skills-based interview of sorts, and then that's how I got into it. So I've been just lucky, I must say.
You a couple of times said how the key to communicating and getting these ideas to the people is through personalizing them with an experience or some sort of situation they can relate to. And I guess one of the things in my journey here with the paper and I've realized is that the problem with a lot of libertarian ideas is that they're argued on logic.
Yep.
And you cannot win a political argument on logic.
Yes.
You have got to win it on.
Exactly.
You can't. You have to make the moral case.
Yeah.
Is basically what it comes down
Yes.
to. And so that sounds like that's something that you're concentrating on here, and that's something we're concentrating on at Wisconsin. I think that's something that we have to concentrate on, is to, because we always have the moral case on our side. We've got to use it.
It's just been like very simple things like it's not about, oh, the government is spending X amount in X whatever in this project or that, but it's saying this is how much it's going to cost you. You know, just twisting it around, tweaking it around, and making it, because people will not understand millions and billions and all that stuff, but people will understand 500 rupees to me. That's my cost. So it's always been about taking it to that last customer and making it relevant to how does it relate to me, because that's the only way I can feel the pinch. So that's an effort, a conscious effort that we're trying to do at this end. And sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't, but that's the way we want to move forward. Any more questions? Yes.
One more, actually. I'm trying to compare what I'm getting from India's social structure to, or intellectual structure to the United States. And I'm trying to think, well, the United States, the media is run by commies. Our higher education is Marxist. Our federal government is Marxist in a lot of ways. And so in the United States, we have Fox News, we have conservative media, and we have new media. But the idea of communicating, or the idea of I own my life, I own my body, you know, the libertarian message, doesn't really have any foothold anywhere except for maybe Fox News on occasion and some talk radio. I don't know if you're familiar with conservative talk radio in the United States, but it's an outlet where you can at least hear these ideas. Is there any place in India where where it's not Marxist or communist at all times, that there's some kind of free market message somewhere that they might get through officialdom?
Not really. I think the situation is pretty much the same. You may find a few individuals within each organization or each media house who are pro-market and who are sympathetic to your ideas, but not as an institution, I must say. It's always been through individual connections that we've been able to make that connection. But it's pretty much similar, very, very similar to what you're talking about.
Sorry about that.
You know, obviously your organization is doing a lot of work to try to appeal to younger, 18 to 25-year-olds. I wonder, how is the success of that? Do you feel like, based on kind of the generation, that the younger people coming up are more libertarian-minded than maybe their parents are, or what's their natural upbringing in terms of where they default to?
I think the youth in India are liberal in the meaning of the liberal sense. They are whenever we have these programs for them, they are so bought into the idea of individual freedom. It makes sense to them, but as soon as you take that logic to economic and political freedom, somehow there is that resistance. 5 minutes ago, you were criticizing the government for screwing up your life, but now you want that same government to protect the lives of others. So it's a challenge. It's a two-faced thing. However, I must say that because of the extent to which they have exposure through the media, I must say they are more libertarian than, not libertarian, more liberal than what Parth had to deal with 15 years ago. So a lot, and they are open to the idea of engaging. You know, at the end of a program, we have like some of the indicators by which we try and assess how the program has gone. So how many people are actually left confused and angry? How many people are bought into the ideas? How many people want to learn more about these ideas? The idea is always to leave people with that hunger to learn more and come back to you know, explore these ideas. So I would say better in the context of where we came from, but we still have a long way to go. Thank you very much.